How does it feel to be the same sex as Donald Trump?
How does it feel to be the same sex as Sarah Palin? How does it feel to be the same sex as Michelle Bachmann? How does it feel to be the same sex as anybody you disagree with? Why does it even matter whether or not I'm the same gender as somebody else? I mean, I'm also the same gender as Abraham Lincoln Einstein and the guy who introduced chocolate to the Western world. So what are you even getting at with this question? Are you trying to say Donald Trump is bad and Donald Trump is a man, therefore men are bad?
Why do you hate rom-coms? Or do you just feel like you need to hate them?
Everybody likes The Notebook. Everybody likes Beyonce. It's just a fact.
Men hate romantic comedies for the same reason you hate video games with over-sexualized female characters. The men in these movies are always willing to sacrifice their careers, their dreams, and even their lives to win the lead female's affection. Now, I don't have any empirical data to back this up, but it seems to me that romantic comedies and romance movies in general cause women to have unrealistic expectations of men and what love should be like, and these become the expectations that men have to live up to, and it's unfair. Feminists like to bitch about poor representation of women in media intended for men because they promote body image issues and shit like that, and I agree to at least an extent, but it's not any better for men when we're expected to be Prince Charming, ready and willing to sacrifice ourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally, and we're called selfish for daring to have our own desires, or even misogynistic for daring to draw attention to our own problems. These movies appeal to the female fantasy of having a knight in shining armor swear their entire existence to pleasing them, and thus reinforce these notions within their target audience of women like you that you somehow deserve and should expect to have your boyfriends and husbands give up everything that makes them who they are and basically dehumanize themselves for your pleasure and devote 100% of their time and energy to you. The fact that some of you watching this are scoffing at what I just said only proves my point. You have fooled yourselves into thinking that I'm somehow the one who's being selfish when I object to the notion that men should be expected to cave into all of your demands for the sake of your perverted, idealistic conception of love. And I have no doubts that some of you will accuse me of being bitter at some ex-girlfriend for saying that, but I'm not, and I will preemptively characterize such an argument as an outcropping of the very mentality that I'm talking about. You expect all of your demands to be catered to, and any man who is unwilling or unable to cater to them must have something wrong with them. Us men are human beings with our own interests and goals, and it's selfish for you to expect us to give all that up for you. But these movies condition you to expect exactly that. And that is why we hate romantic comedies. We don't see anything romantic about them. What we see is the reinforcement of unfair and unreasonable expectations about what we should be doing with our own lives. Also, fuck Beyonce.
Why do you make women sit around and talk about men in movies
When y'all easily just sit around and talk about boobs for hours?
1. I don't know. Maybe you should be asking the people who write the romantic comedies you like so much, because those are the movies which have women sitting around talking about men. Or better yet, instead of complaining about how writers depict women in their movies, maybe you should try being the change you want to see and write your own damn movie. Then you can make the female characters sit around and talk about whatever you want, like how men are oppressing them, or how men are objectifying them, or how men are such pigs, or how men spread their legs too far apart on the subway, or how men hate romantic comedies. There's nothing stopping you. 2. You're referring to the Bechdel test, which is bullshit. All of the Twilight movies passed the Bechdel test, but I think you'd hesitate to call any of those movies pro-feminist. 3. I don't know a single guy who ever talks about boobs for hours at a time. I think the only guys who do are medical students learning how to conduct mammograms. You want to know what most of the men I know talk about? Movies, video games, politics, religion, music, sports, cars, boats, technology, work, guns, hunting, places they've been to, people they've met, and so on. The subject of boobs actually rarely ever comes up. Contrary to what you may have been told in your women's studies class, men don't think about sex constantly. If we did, we would never have invented the camera equipment you use to make this video. 4. If anybody is talking about boobs for hours at a time, it's feminists. You're the ones who are always whining about the designs of fictional characters complaining that Batgirl's tits are too big. In all honesty, the only time I ever even think about a comic book character's tits is when I hear a feminist bring it up, so I think maybe you're projecting.
Why do you automatically assume that you won't like TV or movies that star a female lead?
I don't. In fact, some of my favorite movies and TV shows have female leads. I don't know a single man who has ever scoffed at the notion of watching a movie or TV show just because it has a female protagonist. However, I have seen feminists scoff at anything with a male lead.
Why are you surprised when women are funny?
I'm probably funnier than you.
I'm not surprised when women are funny. There are plenty of funny women out there. Shoe on Head, Pupinia, Stewart, etc. But I will say that, in general, women are not as funny as men, and I think most women will agree with that statement. I also think there's a reason for this. See, if you understand what humor is and how it works, which I'm guessing you don't because you're feminists, then you know that the things that make people laugh often have their roots in very dark subject matter. To quote the amazing atheist,
"These people who are fucking offended by rape jokes don't even understand humor. They think of humor as like a happy thing because humor makes us laugh and laughter makes us happy. But a lot of the times they don't seem to notice that what we're actually laughing at is quite dark and morbid. Like if you actually look at it and examine the jokes and look at the exaggeration and try to figure out the mechanics of how the joke works, why does it work, you're going to find that a lot of jokes have their genesis in pain and suffering. Because laughter is this great transcendent tool we have where we can take something that's bitter and difficult to comprehend or deal with and make it something funny. Like if I take a joke like, how many police officers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They just beat the room for being black. You know, that joke has its genesis in some very serious, very dark shit. And that joke is not making light of the fact that people have suffered, or it's not making light of the fact that people, you know, marched in the civil rights movement, or that people are racially discriminated against, or police brutality. It's not making light of any of that. What it's doing is it's taking that pain, and it's taking that dark subject matter, and it's helping us transcend it for a moment, and view the absurdity of our circumstance, because that is what humor is supposed to do. Humor at its best takes the elements of the world that are dark and horrible and shows you their absurdity. It shows you the absurdity of the human condition, and that is important.
See, men are socially conditioned to not talk openly and honestly about their feelings, which I will talk more about later, and that's why we cultivate a sense of humor. The only way we can really talk about the things that upset us is if we do it through the filter of comedy. But women have the privilege to not be subject to such social conditioning, and so they don't feel the need to cultivate a sense of humor, and that's why women, in general, aren't as funny as men. That isn't to say that all men are funny, or that all women are unfunny. It's just that, in general, men are funnier than women. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. Also, no, I rather strongly doubt that you're funnier than me, and it's not because you're a woman. Just judging by how you look and talk, I'm willing to bet that your sense of humor boils down to saying something rude, and then following it with, just kidding. I mean, I'm not the funniest person in the world, but if you think of yourself as the funny one, you probably lack the objectivity to realize that everybody else in your circle of friends probably thinks of you as the annoying one. Just kidding. Actually, I'm not.
Why do you think that we're obsessed with you when we hook up?
9 times out of 10, I just want you to leave too. I'm busy. I got shit to do.
Probably because you do shit like text us 50 times in the space of 1 hour and slash our tires when we dump you after you accuse us of cheating because you saw our sister's name in our call history. Also, what shit could you possibly have to do? Pluck your eyebrows to the point where they're so unnaturally clean around the edges that they look like they're drawn on? Spend your husband's money on more frumpy sweaters? Buy a tub of Ben & Jerry's and watch Glee? Or write more inane questions for men to answer because you're so lacking in self-awareness that you can't figure out the answers for yourself?
Why can't I sleep with as many people as I want to without being judged? When men do it, they're congratulated.
Go ahead and sleep with as many people as you want. I don't give a shit. And once again, I don't know anybody who would. The only time I would care is if I was dating you, because if you told me you've been with 20 other guys before I met you, I would naturally assume that there was something wrong with you if you've been in so many relationships and had them all fail, not to mention the fact that you're substantially more likely to be carrying an STD, and I think it's perfectly reasonable for a woman to view men who have slept with a lot of other women the same way. Also, who's congratulating men for sleeping around? I don't see any guys walking around with trophies for fucking everyone they've met. It's not like having sex with easy women is some kind of achievement. Furthermore, I would say that most media portrays men who do that as assholes who should be looked at with contempt. I mean, Glenn Quagmire isn't exactly portrayed as a model citizen. By the way, studies have found that the majority of people who slut-shame women are other women. Maybe you should be directing this question at them and not men.
Why do you consider a woman a tease if she doesn't sleep with you after 3 dates, but a slut if she sleeps with you on the first date?
Why do you consider a man a douchebag if he doesn't call you back 3 days after he meets you, but desperate if he calls you the next day?
In what world does no mean yes?
No means no.
I don't know anybody who thinks no means yes. Also, this question seems to be in the spirit of the feminist notion that all men are potential rapists, which simply isn't true. I already talked about this at length in my other video, Teach Men Not to Rape is Stupid Rhetoric. Moving on.
Why do you say that women are too emotional to be leaders?
Maybe if feminists argued with logic and evidence instead of feelings, people wouldn't think that.
Then justify catcalling by saying men just can't control themselves.
I've never heard a man say either. I have heard women say both, though.
Why do you think that just because you're nice to me, I owe you my body?
Why do you think that just because I'm nice to you that I want your body?
Sometimes I've been walking down the street hysterically crying because my cat was missing, and a man came up and was like, "Hey, what's up? Why are you crying? Can I talk to you?" Like,
but I want to continue this. So when the guy came up to you and asked you how you were doing, Did you judge his intention, or do you feel like you? Or
I was like, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm
Wait.
hysterically crying holding flyers that say missing cat.
Wait, what if he was checking how you were doing because you were crying?
No, it was a cat call. It was like a, hey, pretty lady, like, what's going on? You
What
get in
if
my
he was
truck.
trying to be sweet to get into you? Like, hey, pretty lady, why are you crying? What's
That's
wrong?
not
He's
the right
not,
time, I
he's
think.
not entitled to my time, honestly.
If he had not said anything to you, then he's a dick because he's a guy in society who saw a girl crying and didn't do anything.
But it's a different, if he's saying that to get my number, that's different than him coming up and saying, what's wrong? If I see your cat around, I'll let you know. Like, that's a different thing.
How was he gonna know about your cat? He saw a girl crying on the street.
Well, it was just, I was hanging up a
So
flyer,
now I'll
is
know
when that
if I
happened.
ever see a girl crying on the street and she's hysterical and she might have just lost her parents and has nobody, I shouldn't go up to her because she might think
doesn't
I'm
know
objectifying
you.
her.
She doesn't know you.
But we're humans. We should care about each other.
Of course, but, and I think you have to understand what you come off as to women. They don't know you. It's like if a brown bear came up and said hello to you. Like, you just have to, like...
Why would you ever send an unsolicited dick pic?
I wouldn't. If you didn't give out your phone number to the types of guys you meet in nightclubs, you know, the type of guys who go to such clubs for the specific purpose of meeting women and who read books about how to be a pickup artist, maybe you wouldn't be getting dick pics from them.
Why do you feel like it's okay to harass women or make offensive comments about women, but when somebody does it to your sister, it's not okay?
Why do you feel like it's okay to make these misandric videos which paint all men as sexual harassers and rapists, but when somebody treats your son that way, it's not okay?
How does it feel to interrupt me when I'm in the middle of making a point during a meeting?
You make it sound like the only people who have ever interrupted you are men. I smell confirmation bias. Hey, have you ever stopped to think that maybe people interrupt you because they realize you're talking shit and wasting time after only 2 sentences?
Why do you have to sit with your legs so wide open?
I get that you have balls, but I don't stand around with my arms wide open to make room for my boobs.
Maybe that's because your boobs don't get squished between your arms when you stand normally with your arms down by your sides. A man's balls are literally between his legs, and they do get squished if he puts his legs together. It's not exactly an apt comparison. Furthermore, why do you even care? Not so you complain about women taking up 2 seats with their bags.
Why are women perceived as the weaker sex? Even though we literally birth you. Like watermelons through like this.
Because physical strength has nothing to do with your ability to give birth. Women are, generally speaking, not as physically strong as men. The average man has about 50% greater upper body strength than the average woman. I'm sorry, but that's just simple biology. There's also the fact that men are, by and large, the ones who go to war and fight and die to protect you. Men are the ones who work the dangerous jobs which make your comfortable lifestyle in the industrialized world possible. And historically, men are also the ones who have gone out into the unforgiving wilderness to kill dangerous animals so ungrateful, entitled women like you could eat. You, as a woman, are substantially less likely to die during your daily activities, and you don't have to worry about being called a deadbeat for not risking life and limb in a factory or field for the benefit of others. Nor do you have to worry about being told you don't have a real job because you work with computers or push pencils in a safe, clean environment. Women work soft, cushy jobs compared to men, and that's why women make up only 7% of workplace fatalities despite making up 47% of the workforce. That is why you are perceived as the weaker sex. If you don't want people to see you that way, then get out of your comfortable air-conditioned studio and go work on a crabbing boat or in a coal mine. You're always complaining about employment discrimination, so go ahead, take the dirty, dangerous jobs and show us all just how strong and tough you are. And look, I don't begrudge women for working jobs that don't put them in danger, and I will freely admit that my job isn't particularly dangerous. But if you're going to sit there and act like women are stronger than men just because you can give birth, something which you have a 0.0002% chance of dying from if you live in the United States, and that's up from 15 years ago, then you can fuck right off. By the way, passing a kidney stone hurts more than giving birth. Any woman who has experienced both will tell you that, and men get them more often, so blow me.
Why is it so bad to show your emotions?
It means you're human.
Maybe it's because feminists like you tell us we're misogynists for even daring to complain about our problems. Since you're not a man and you don't have even the slightest inkling of what it's like to be a man, let me spell it out for you. Boys are socially conditioned from the day we learn to talk to not express our feelings. We are brought up constantly being told to man up and that boys don't cry. We don't have the privilege of showing our emotions because if we do, it is seen as a sign of weakness. To put it simply, us men are programmed to believe that our own feelings are invalid, and so we hide them and we lie about them. We are raised to expect that if we tell you our feelings, you will shoot them down. You will tell us we're wrong for feeling the way we do, and even if you don't, we still don't want to tell you our feelings because we know you'll use them against us. You're probably thinking that you don't do that, but you do. You do it all the time and don't even realize it. Ask yourself if you have ever had an argument with one of the men in your life and you told them if you were a real man. If you ever have, then you have done exactly what I'm talking about. See, no woman has ever been told if you are a real woman you wouldn't feel this way. Women have their feelings cultivated and coddled. You're not only allowed to cry, you're expected to, and when you do, people around you give you sympathy and you're comforted. You are so used to getting sympathy that you feel entitled to it. Men don't have that luxury. A man fully expects to be looked down upon and told that his feelings don't matter if he shows any sign of emotional weakness, even by the people he trusts most, because that's what he has experienced for his entire life. And you wonder why the suicide rate for men is 4 times higher than it is for women. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say that the social conditioning of men to not show their emotions is part of the patriarchy, and feminism is fighting to change that. Good. What heroes you are. Let me give you a little golf clap while you take a sip from your fucking male tears mug while sitting in the comfort of your safe space where men aren't allowed.
Why are you always trying to prove your masculinity to me?
See my answer to the previous question. Also, wow. How egocentric are you? You are so certain that the world revolves around you that you believe that when a man is acting like a man that he must be trying to prove something to you? Like he couldn't possibly be acting like a man just because he's, you know, a fucking man? Why are you constantly trying to prove your femininity to me? How about that?
Why the f isn't it ladylike to cuss? When did words get gendered?
It's also considered not gentlemanlike to curse. Swearing is generally considered rude regardless of the gender of the person who's doing it. Personally, I don't give a shit if you use profanity, go right the fuck ahead. And when did words get gendered? I guess right around the time the word feminist was invented, which is itself a gendered word. I mean, the invention of feminism is when everything suddenly became gendered. Like when you assert that interrupting people is somehow a uniquely male behavior, or that only women get told not to swear.